The unfinished bridge. The year began with a plan, a meticulously drawn blueprint I called the bridge. It was a figurative structure, but in my mind, architect Sarah Chen, it was as real as the steel and concrete I worked with daily. The bridge was meant to span the gap between my current, moderately successful life and the glorious, definitive there, the place where my new architectural firm was globally recognized, where I had secured the prestigious City Hall renovation contract, and where I finally had a perfectly organized home that did not look like a professional whirlwind had just passed through it. My biggest lesson, I realized much later, was that some bridges are never meant to be finished, only walked upon. For the first 6 months, I was the quintessential hustler. I worked 80-hour weeks, subsisting on black coffee and the high of ambition. I chased every lead, refined every sketch, and micromanaged every aspect of the firm's small projects, believing that sheer effort was the only variable that mattered. The first crack in my foundation appeared in June. It wasn't in my life, but in the actual physical bridge I was supervising for a client, a small pedestrian overpass. We hit an unexpected snag. The geological survey had missed a deep layer of unstable clay on the west bank. Fixing it meant a 3-month delay and a budget overrun. I was furious. I railed at the project manager, I reviewed the original reports a dozen times, and I spent sleepless nights trying to engineer a way to force the timeline back into submission. I saw the overpass as a failure because it wouldn't meet the planned completion date. The stress was a physical weight. I started canceling the few social engagements I had. My conversations revolved solely around work, and I even missed my younger sister's birthday dinner, a crime in our family. I remember her text, "Don't worry about the gift, Sarah. Just miss you. You're always chasing the future." The breaking point came in August, not with a roar, but with a dull thud. I was alone in the office at 2 a.m., trying to perfect a presentation for the City Hall bid when my laptop decided to freeze. And then, the ultimate insult, the power went out. In the sudden, oppressive silence and darkness, I felt a wave of exhaustion so profound it was paralyzing. I wasn't just tired, I was hollow. I looked around my dark, silent office and realized that in my frantic race to build the bridge to there, I had left absolutely nothing for myself here. The next morning, I did something radical. I took a day off. I drove out to the countryside, away from the skyline I was so desperately trying to climb. I found a small, old, moss-covered stone bridge arcing gracefully over a river. It was clearly centuries old, its stones weathered and uneven. I sat on its bank for hours, watching the water flow. The river wasn't waiting for the bridge to be perfect or finished. It just kept flowing, an embodiment of continuous, unhurried motion. It hit me then. My life wasn't a structure to be completed, but a process to be experienced. My bridge plan was flawed because it fixated entirely on the destination, global recognition, perfect home, and completely negated the journey. I was so focused on laying the final deck that I never bothered to look at the view from the pier I was currently standing on. The biggest lesson I learned this year was the art of sufficient effort and the power of now. I didn't abandon the City Hall bid, but I stopped working 80 hours a week. I began delegating tasks I knew others could handle. I dedicated 1 hour every evening to something purely restorative, reading a novel, cooking a simple meal, or just calling my sister. The City Hall contract? I didn't get it. I was deeply disappointed, of course, but this time the disappointment didn't shatter me. I reviewed the winning bid, noted their strengths, and immediately started applying those lessons to a smaller local heritage restoration project that was frankly more interesting and sustainable for my firm's current size. The actual pedestrian overpass? It finished in October, 3 months late. The client was happy with the final, more stable structure, and I had learned more about managing unexpected geological risks than I ever would have following a perfect blueprint. I realized that my initial bridge plan was a rigid, unforgiving line. The real path, the one I was now walking, was a winding, imperfect trail with beautiful detours, necessary pauses, and unexpected climbs. The key was to appreciate the ground beneath my feet right now, instead of constantly straining my neck to see the distant horizon. I haven't arrived. My home is still not perfectly organized, and my firm is still relatively small, but I'm sleeping better, laughing more easily, and my sister and I have a weekly dinner date. I'm building a sustainable, meaningful career, not just a frantic path to an arbitrary finish line. The bridge to the future is not a fixed, finished structure. It is the current moment, and all I need to do is take the next step. And that, I realized, is a much less stressful way to live.